welcome to another episode of the Tejado Traveler. I'm your host, Wally, and today we are on the Texas Forts Trail at Fort Chadbourne. As you can see, the big spur leading you inside, and they have a recently added visitors center, which is pretty cool because it contains a lot of historical artifacts and a lot of things that you get to know and have to know when you are touring the Texas Forts Trail. They have a movie which showcases some of the history behind the fort, and they have a lot of artifacts. I myself like looking at arrowheads. I like how they were made and how different they are and the different uses and everything. Like I said, they have a museum there with plenty of artifacts to look through. It gives you an idea of what life was like back then in the West, along the frontier, and how people used to live. Of course, if you follow the GPS, you'll end up in some back roads and you'll end up kind of lost. So don't follow the GPS. Make sure you know exactly where you're going. It took me about 45 minutes to find this place, just because I kept following the GPS, and the GPS said, no, turn here. No, really, turn here. And I was out on some red dirt road in the middle of nowhere. Till I finally gave up and just decided to leave and head towards the Fort Chadbourne that everyone says is there. So I eventually made it, and I was happy because I got to see all these artifacts. Look at that machine gun. Look at that teepee. As we talked about, the Comanches were big during the years of the Texas forts. When they were active, they were mostly built in order to protect against the Comanche raids. So people traveling along the trails, heading west towards California, needed places to stop and places to feel secure, and the forts were placed there so that the Comanches could leave people alone. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't, and there were a lot of fights and skirmishes and battles between the two. And so eventually the Comanche were driven out, and a sort of peace came upon the land. There you see the carriages. They're a lot bigger than you think they are, and they fit a lot more people than you think they would fit. Like sometimes they can fit up to 14 people in them. To take a look at the fort, you get to drive a nice little golf cart. It's bumpy, but at least the guy takes you around to go look at some of the ruins of the fort. You get to check out some of the scenes, and they're pretty good at giving you a history behind it and what was there and how it all functioned and why it's still standing. There's my driver. You get to drive around instead of walking, which is good because the walk would have killed me. But it's still pretty cool to go to these places, and before they were trying to save them, they were just standing out there in the middle of nowhere. So people would go, stop by, and look at the history and write their names. Look at all those people that write their names. It was pretty standard practice. Nobody was really concerned about preserving history like we are nowadays. So you just go in there and you write your name. Wally was here, called Sapo's Way, and stuff like that. But some of the houses have been restored. You can go up into them and see how life was like back then during the fort's eras. And the fort eras really weren't that long in history. This Fort Chadbourne, was established in 1852, but was pretty much abandoned by 1867. That's a good 15 years or so, which is not that long in the realm of things. But you can see how they used to live back then with their beds and everything. And there's more forts and barracks and such. Like I said, thankfully they drive you around so you don't have to walk, and you get to look at some really cool places to stop by for about 5-10 minutes at a time. Let you look around, read what they have, experience the place. But I've always liked the stonework behind some of these forts. Just imagine how they all put it together. And once again, this area of Texas is really windy. Really, really windy. At least when I was there, the winds were pretty horrible, and you could see clouds of dust being blown everywhere. Which I guess, you know, when something is dry and windy, it's bound to happen. But that was my last look at the ruins of the fort. I always like how they leave some ruins behind and then rebuild some of the other ones so you can see what it looks like now and what it looked like before. And then they have this little exhibit on different types of wagons that they used to have back then, and all the different purposes they would use them for, right before we started getting cars and got all lazy and stuff. But this was my favorite carriage right here. Look at how fancy that is. Look at those wheels. Look at those rims. But it tells you how much they would charge you to get you to California. And then eventually you get taken back to the visitor center. Get to see some last minute things before you head on out on your way to look at more forts. Anyways, thanks for coming with me on this trip to the Texas forts, and I hope you've been enjoying it. So make sure to like and subscribe. Thank you. Bye-bye.